Why have people been paying $200,000 for something that might already be outdated and not even realizing it? For years, buying a motorhome felt like stepping into a dream. Freedom, adventure, endless open roads. But what if that dream was built on an illusion? Because in 2025, something happened that forced people to look twice. A new kind of RV appeared. It looked more advanced, more modern, more complete. And somehow, it cost almost half the price. At first, people thought it was a mistake. But the deeper they looked, the more uncomfortable the truth became. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you take a closer look at the RV industry, a strange pattern starts to appear. From the outside, everything feels premium. Shiny finishes, big promises, lifestyle marketing that makes you feel like you're buying freedom itself. But behind that image, the reality is very different. For decades, the industry has been controlled by a small group of companies. The same designs keep coming back, the same layouts, the same systems, just slightly updated and rebranded as something new. And most buyers never question it, but owners do. Talk to people who've actually lived with these RVs and a different story comes out. Water leaks after just a few trips. Poor insulation makes extreme weather unbearable. Electrical systems that feel outdated. And repairs that start way earlier than expected. Some people begin spending money almost immediately after buying. And then comes the biggest hit. The moment you drive it off the lot, the value drops. Not a little. Sometimes close to 20% instantly. That's tens of thousands gone in a single day. No wonder some owners quietly call it a money pit. But for years, people accepted this as normal. But while all of this was happening, something else was going on in the background. Quietly, patiently, China was watching. Not rushing, not competing directly, just observing. Back in 2019, China's RV market was tiny, around 200,000 units across the entire country. Compared to the US, it looked insignificant. And the RVs being produced at that time didn't help their reputation. Weak materials, poor durability, designs that couldn't handle real-world use. On the surface, it looked like they were far behind. But that was only the surface. Because instead of trying to win immediately, they shifted strategy. They stopped copying and started understanding. They studied the entire system, where the costs were coming from, where the technology had stopped evolving, where customers were being sold the same thing with a different label, and, most importantly, where the opportunity was hiding. This wasn't about building a better RV overnight. This was about learning the weaknesses of an entire industry, and once they understood it, everything changed. Suddenly, 3 advantages came into play, and together, they created something the traditional market wasn't ready for. The first was battery technology. While most RVs in America were still relying on diesel engines and basic electrical setups, China had already moved forward through its electric vehicle boom. Companies like BYD had spent years developing advanced battery systems, energy management, and efficiency. This wasn't experimental for them. It was normal, and that meant an RV didn't have to be limited anymore. It could become a fully powered mobile home. The second advantage was manufacturing. Not just cheaper, but smarter. China's production systems are built for speed and control. Instead of relying on dozens of separate suppliers, many companies handle everything within one ecosystem. That reduces cost, cuts delays, and improves consistency. While other manufacturers see costs stack up at every stage, this system keeps everything tight and efficient. And then there was the third advantage, the most important one: no attachment to the past. American RV companies have been doing things the same way for years. Change isn't easy when your entire system depends on that structure. But China didn't have that problem. They weren't trying to improve an old idea. They were building something new from the ground up. And then, the moment came that proved it. When the Wanaka T5DM Pro Max was revealed, people didn't know what to think at first. From the outside, it looked like a high-end motorhome. Clean lines, modern design, nothing unusual. Until the details started coming out. It came with a massive 55 kilowatt-hour battery, not something you expect in a traditional RV. That alone changed the game. Suddenly you could power your entire living space without constantly relying on generators or hookups. But it didn't stop there. It used a hybrid diesel-electric system built on advanced automotive tech. That meant you could switch between power sources depending on your needs. Quiet electric driving when you want peace. Diesel backup when you need range. Then came the solar integration. Real solar. Not decorative panels. A system that could actually generate enough energy to keep you going for days off-grid. And the inside, That's where things really shifted. Instead of the usual ERV interior, it felt like stepping into something closer to a luxury apartment. Minimalist design, high-quality materials, smart layout that actually made sense, and on top of that, a climate system that learns your habits and adjusts automatically. No constant tweaking, no frustration, just comfort that adapts to you. At this point, people started asking the obvious question: if this were built by an American brand, what would it cost? The answer, easily $500,000. But when the real price came out, everything stopped. Because it wasn't even close to that. It was dramatically lower. So low that people didn't trust it. Online comments flooded in. There has to be a catch. Maybe the materials are cheap. Maybe the features don't actually work. Maybe it's just marketing. And honestly, that reaction made sense. For years, people were trained to believe that a high price equals high quality. But then reviewers got involved. Not influencers, not marketers, independent testers who actually spent time with the vehicle. They drove it, lived in it, checked every system, and what they found surprised everyone. The quality wasn't lacking. In fact, in some areas, it was better than premium models already on the market. And that's when the narrative started to crack. Because the issue wasn't quality, it was perspective. For years, people assumed this was just how things were supposed to be. Expensive, slightly flawed, slowly improving. But when someone approached the same problem from a completely different angle, the truth came out. And then came another surprise, because not every Chinese RV was built to impress. Some were built to actually be used. The Great Wall Power RV showed a completely different side of the story. This wasn't about luxury. This was about practicality. It came with a true 4x4 system, not just branding, real capability, the kind that lets you go beyond paved roads, into the mountains, dirt trails, places where traditional RVs struggle to even reach. Inside, the focus was on usability, a full bathroom that actually works, an expandable living space that grows when you stop. Everything is designed around real-world travel, not just showroom appeal, and that's when people started realizing something important. This wasn't just about building cheaper alternatives. It was about building better solutions. And then came the comparison that changed everything. On one side, you had RVs priced around $55,000. On the other hand, similar models in the US go for $120,000, $150,000, even $180,000. At first, people tried to justify it. Maybe the cheaper option is missing something. Maybe it won't last. But as more comparisons came out, that argument started falling apart because the cheaper option wasn't lacking. It was competing. And sometimes outperforming. That's when the uncomfortable realization started to spread. People began looking back at their own purchases, the money they spent, the compromises they accepted, and a quiet thought started forming. What if we've been paying more for less? But the real reason behind all of this goes deeper than price. It comes down to how these vehicles are made. In the US, most RV companies don't build everything themselves. They assemble. The chassis comes from one place, the cabinets from another, electrical systems from somewhere else. Each supplier adds cost, each step adds complexity, and by the time everything comes together, the final price reflects all of it. Now compare that to a vertically integrated system. Companies like BYD don't just assemble products, they build key components in-house: batteries, electronics, core systems. That level of control changes everything. Costs stay lower, quality becomes more consistent, and innovation moves faster. A clear example of this approach is the Dongfeng MS600, built from the ground up on a truck platform, not converted as an afterthought. A powerful diesel engine, permanent four-wheel drive, suspension designed for harsh conditions. This isn't about appearance, it's about capability. And this difference, assembly versus engineering, is what created the gap we're seeing today. But this story doesn't end with one or two models, because now the entire market is shifting. In just a few years, China's RV market has grown rapidly, from around 200,000 units to well over 240,000. And it's not slowing down. The biggest driver? Younger buyers. Families who don't want to spend a fortune but still want the freedom of travel. For them, an RV isn't a luxury item. It's a practical tool, and that mindset is spreading. Companies like Maxus are already planning expansions into global markets, Europe, eventually beyond. Not with ultra-luxury models, but with affordable electric campers designed to compete directly with established brands at nearly half the price. And behind the scenes, Even American companies are paying attention, quietly, visiting factories, studying processes, trying to understand what's happening before it's too late, because this isn't just a product shift, it's a mindset shift. Consumers are starting to ask different questions, not just, what brand is it? But what am I actually getting for my money? And once that question becomes common, everything changes. So now the real question isn't whether this disruption will happen. It's how far it will go. Because the RV revolution didn't arrive overnight. It's been building quietly in the background. And now it's finally visible. The only thing left to see is who adapts and who gets left behind.